Yo.
What's going on, people? I'm Code Gray. Welcome back to the channel. And after a week of straight rain, not just rain, but thunderstorms, I'm finally able to get out on the bike again. So here we are, and today's topic is motorcycle registration. So what brought me to this topic? Well, I've been watching some videos lately about some guys talking about how they can't afford a second bike, which I fully understand. But the strange thing about the videos is that some of these guys, their first bike is fully paid off. So it's not like they have a monthly payment to worry about. So it made me kind of curious, if you have a bike that's fully paid off and the only thing you're paying on it is your monthly insurance, why couldn't you afford a second bike? Which leads us to story time. So this story I'm about to tell you will eventually lead us to the topic of motorcycle registration. It is a story that is relevant to the topic. You'll see why in the end. And it may shed some light on some of the reasons why people can't afford second bikes. So the year was 1998. I was a much younger, much more innocent Code Gray back then. Only been married a year, which I'm still married to the same woman, by the way. Hi, honey. So I was born and raised in Ohio. But my family, on my father's side anyway, they're originally from Kentucky. And a few years before I got married, they moved back to Kentucky. My dad and my grandmother and a few other of my family members. And they were quite disappointed when I decided not to go with them. But Ohio was my home and I didn't want to move. But after I got married, they convinced me and my wife to go ahead and make a change and move down to Kentucky. This was a mistake. Now, before I moved down to Kentucky, I was assured that with my work experience that I would have no trouble at all finding a job, finding a place to stay. Should be able to transition down there fairly easily. This was not the case at all. 6 months. It took 6 months to find a job after I moved down there, during which I had to stay with my grandmother. Now, mind you, I've only been married a year, so this wasn't an ideal situation. Now, the reason being is, now this is back in 1998, and I don't know if what I'm about to tell you still applies today, but this is the way it was back then. Back then, Kentucky frowned upon you going out and to companies and putting in your own resumes or applications. They didn't like individuals doing that, so they had an agency down there, an employment agency, which they called the job shop, that would do that for you. You would go to the job shop, give them your resume or application, and they would find you a job, which they were in no hurry at all to do. Like I said, 6 months later, they finally found me something. And of course, by this time, most of my savings are basically gone. It was getting pretty low anyway. I was almost to the point of just moving back to Ohio. I had just enough money left to make the move if I really, really had to. But they called me, found me a job. I figured, okay, we'll give it a go. So I take this job, and after I secure employment, I go to a local bank and open up a checking account. Which you do, so, you know, cash your checks. Well, you know, when you start a new job, they hold back your first check, so it took about 2 to 3 weeks before I received my first check. And after I get my check, I go to the bank and tell them, hey, yeah, I'm here. I just need to cash my check. So the lady takes the check, she looks at it and types in my number, and she looks at me and says, I'm sorry, sir, but we can't cash your check. Of course, I'm confused. I think there might be something wrong with the check, so that's what I ask. I'm like, is there something wrong with it? You know, because this is a new company. I don't really, in a new state that I don't really know much about, so I don't really know their reputation. So the lady tells me, no, there's nothing wrong with the check. It's fine. So, still confused, I say, so why can't you cash my check? And the lady says, well, because we don't know you. I'm like, what do you mean you don't know me? You got my license, I have a checking account here. And she says, yeah, but we don't know you. I'm like, you're gonna have to explain. What do you mean? She says, well, you're new here and you haven't been established yet. Of course, I don't know what she's talking about. I'm like, so you don't know me because I'm not established and you can't cash my check. I said, so what do I have to do to get my check cashed? And this is what she asked me. She says, who's your family? I'm like, who's my family? What does my family have anything to do with me cashing a check here at your bank? So, of course, at this point, many colorful words and phrases came to mind, which I had a very strong desire to give to this woman, but cooler heads prevailed. So then I calmly asked the lady, why do you need to know who my family is to be able to cash my check? And she says, well, if we know who your family is and they're established here in Kentucky, then they might be able to help you cash your check. She says, maybe they may even have an account here. So I tell the lady, well, it just so happens that my father has an account at this bank. And she says, oh, well, that'll work out perfectly. So this is what I had to do to get my checks cashed. I actually had to have my father co-sign my check for a month before I was established in Kentucky, and they knew me well enough to be able to cash my checks at a bank that I already had an account open with. So, as you can tell, I'm not impressed with the way Kentucky does things at this point. So a little bit of time goes on. I'm still working at the same company. I'm getting my checks cashed. But another problem I had at the time was that I needed another vehicle. I needed another car. I only had one car to go between me and my wife. So we start shopping around and we find a, let's see, it was a 1992, I think, Nissan Stanza in real good condition for $2,000. So I'd been saving up a little bit since I started working. And I go and buy this Nissan. Paid cash for it. Registration for my car. Get the plates. And give them all of my information. The lady looks at me, does all the paperwork, says everything turned out good. That'll be $200. Of course, my jaw drops. I'm like, $200 for what? Now, mind you, registration for my car up here in Ohio is about $50 to $55. It's the same for my motorcycle, $50 to $55. So when I hear $200, I have no idea what's going on and why they're trying to charge so much. Well, as it turns out, which everyone neglected to tell me this before I moved down to Kentucky, that in Kentucky, vehicles are considered property. So you have to pay a property tax on your vehicle every time you update your registration. And that tax is 10% of whatever the vehicle is worth. So since I spent $2,000 on a car, my plates cost me $200. Of course, I find this utterly ridiculous, because how can you afford to buy anything nice there? This had happened to another guy that I had worked with down there who was originally from Michigan. He moved down there, and he didn't know about this tax either. And he bought a brand new truck for, I think it was $32,000. And had to take it back because his plates were going to cost him $3,200. So that was basically the last straw for living in Kentucky for me and my wife. We stuck it out until we put money aside to be able to move back to Ohio, which eventually we did. Took about 2.5, 3 years, but we did. So if I stayed in Kentucky, there would be no way I would be able to afford a car and a motorcycle. So maybe it's the same way for some of these guys who have cars or motorcycles that are already paid off, but they just can't afford the registration. So that is the question for today's topic. Do you guys run into the same problems or similar problems in the states or countries that you guys live in? I mean, I know there are more than one state that does that, and I don't know about the other countries. You guys will have to fill me in on that. I know some states here in the US, they require vehicle inspections that cost money. I mean, here in Ohio, if you have a vehicle that's older than 5 years, you have to get an emissions test, and if you don't pass, whatever the problem is, you have to get repaired. So that could run you a little bit of money before you pass your emissions check. But I know some states require full inspections. I mean, you have to fix a lot more than just your exhaust. Are these the kind of things that are holding you back from getting a second bike or even a first bike? Maybe your car just costs too much to be able to afford any kind of motorcycle. Yeah, let me know in the comments what kind of hoops you guys have to jump through to get your vehicle registered, your motorcycle registered. Now, hopefully I didn't bore you too much with my long-winded story. Okay guys, I'm going to wrap it up here. If you enjoyed the video, give me a like. If you want to, subscribe. Hit the notification bell. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. I'm Code Gray. I'll see you guys in the next one.